I'd like to welcome everybody here today to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners. This is February 20th, 2018. Will the meeting come to order? And then can we stand and say our pledge of allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we look at the agenda review. Does anybody have any additions or changes? Or Bob, do you have anything?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes today.
I move to approve.
Okay, and so we've got a second before it's approved. No, how did that go again?
Just asking if there are any changes.
Vance and then Mark, correct? Yeah, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And then now we're going to talk about the County Road 90, Trunk Highway 22 Cooperative Agreement. I'd like to invite our county engineer, Mr. Ryan Pilgis, up here.
Morning, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Thank you for a few minutes today to bring this item forward. It was a relatively urgent timeline. So the only action item that I have for today is consideration of the State of Minnesota Department of Transportation and Blue Earth County Cooperative Construction Agreement. This is for construction of the roundabout at the intersection of Minnesota Highway 22, County State Aid Highway 90. Details the project cost share and then the future maintenance items, which in this circumstance, the future maintenance will, for the most part, be the state's responsibility because we took maintenance of some of the lighting items on the intersection with Minnesota Highway 83 and County Road 12. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, so this is that project, maybe we could just talk about it a little bit, that the previous engineer started some work on this to get it approved.
Yes, we had done an intersection study, and because there was a fatality at this intersection, we were able to apply for Highway Safety Improvement Program funds, of which they will pay for approximately 90% of the construction items that are eligible. So the county's cost will be the remaining 10%, which is, and then the construction engineering portion of it will pay the state for the work that they're doing at the intersection, which is a prorated share. So as you can see, the total county obligation on the title page, $676,000. Anticipated county federal aid money, $563,000, almost $564,000. And the county non-federal aid, which will have to come out of our own pockets, $113,000.
Oh, okay. So
we're utilizing those Highway Safety Improvement Program federal funds to pay for the lion's share of the project.
Nice.
Yep.
And an intersection that definitely needs some work.
Absolutely.
So we're paying for actually the majority of the cost, aren't we?
We're paying for our approaches and our share
I
of the
get you.
roundabout.
Okay,
The remainder
thank
is
you.
state projects, so they're going to be doing some
And federal aid's paying 90% of our cost.
of the construction cost, correct?
Wow,
Okay.
So
that's pretty amazing.
yeah, MnDOT will have obviously other road enhancements on their share of
That's what I
Highway
was
22,
wondering.
but that's in their cost share for the project.
Okay. Once we passed an agreement, Ryan, where we were going to kind of forward funds from our county money.
Yes.
And we passed a resolution to do that with the state of Minnesota. I was just curious what happens with that, because they're not going to do that. From what I
Correct. They
understand.
were able to move some money around within their programming to cover those costs so that they didn't have to effectively borrow the money from the county. So that has kind of gone by the wayside as far as the need to do so, but when we brought that forward in early 2016 from a planning standpoint, they hadn't put all of the pieces together to achieve the funding for the project, so that was where they had hoped the county would step up if necessary.
Right.
And we're just fortunate that they were able to move some programming funds around and make
Yep.
it work
Okay.
Works.
without our assistance.
Do we have to do anything with that agreement?
No, because no agreement was, I think we passed effectively a resolution of support
Okay.
that we would be willing to enter into it if necessary, but there was never a formal
Actual
agreement
agreement.
executed.
Okay. All right. So we're looking for a motion.
I'll
on-
move the resolution.
I will second that.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval and a second to go ahead with this cooperative construction agreement regarding the project on 22 and 90, the roundabout. Is there any more discussion or comments?
I'll just say what's already been said. That's one of the most dangerous intersections in the county. And at certain times of the day, you trying to pull off from onto Highway 22 from County Road 90,
Absolutely.
you know, it just can't do it. So it's going to be great to see this project get done. That's amazing and I really appreciate Ryan and all the engineers and all the work that you did to help the taxpayers by getting the federal funding and that, and you know, that's really helps us a lot. It's nice to see some of our money coming back from the federal government
Absolutely.
to help
Wanna
us
put it-
here in Blue
put it
Earth
to work
County.
in Blue Earth County.
So thank you very much.
All right.
I know your comment. No.
No, not in my district.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about.
I wanted that again for the record.
Yeah. The record show.
This
No.
is
still not in
It's still in not, it's not in Will's district out there.
Actually, it's Kibb's.
It's Kip's district, isn't it? Yeah.
Kip's got a lot of roundabouts in his
He's
district.
got the most
Mankato
roundabouts.
Township on the?
One more is not going to make
Oh,
a
might be.
difference.
Maybe it's part of,
Yeah.
Maybe
Oh,
it's
could
yours.
be.
Some of
your
it is.
district, Mark. Mankato Township, how far
I
now?
believe it's right on the
Nine,
line.
90.
Right on the line.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
90 is
I've
the
been part of
line.
I don't mind, I'll take credit, because I had the first one in the whole.
That's right,
county.
on Victory. Then I just had one quick question. I know that we have our trail out there, and it runs from 22 all the way down to County 1. You know, our trail that.
Yep, the South Route Trail on County
Yes.
Route 90 from
Will
22
there
to
be
the
any
west.
provision on any part of the roundabout design, do you think, for future crossings or?
It'll be
for-
designed for pedestrian crossing.
It will.
If the trail is ever extended farther to the east.
Okay. Just,
Yep.
I remember you mentioned it once, I didn't know if that actually,
Correct.
we were gonna do it.
Yeah, and if you want, I can send you the plan sheet for it or not.
No,
but-
I've seen those roundabouts and how they do it.
Yep.
They use the center island safety.
Yep, there'll be a
area.
pedestrian refuge island in the median piece where the traffic is diverted with the curvature. Very similar to the other roundabout
Yeah.
designs we've seen. In fact, SRF is doing the design on this, has completed the design on this roundabout, who they've also done our roundabouts on County Road 12.
Okay.
And had done some of the preliminary geometrics for the one on our stadium and Victory Drive.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good
Yeah,
day.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Now we'll move into orders for redetermination of benefits. We've got our ditch manager, Craig Austenson. Why don't you come on up here?
Morning, Craig.
Morning, Craig.
Good morning.
See if I can get the,
Today I'm requesting the board order redeterminations of benefits and appoint viewers for Blue Earth County Ditch Number 5 and Blue Earth County Ditch 92. Of course, we're trying to do, I guess, eventually try to get everything redetermined. 5 is kind of next on our list because there's potential repairs coming up in the future. 92 because it's adjacent to 5 and it would just be very cost effective to do 92 at the same time as County Ditch 5.
is that in your district, Will? I don't
It's
know.
mine.
It's in your district.
I'll move approval of the recommendation from staff.
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion for approval and a second from our two county commissioners, that are rural county commissioners that work with ditches. And I'd like to ask if there's any comments at all regarding, you know, the
Craig,
projects.
it's relatively short. We might have some big repairs coming up, and this one's just way out of whack. It's not all that old. It's not from the early 1900s. It's from the 70s.
Oh, it is?
But it's just
Actually 80s,
not
but it's not
80s.
defensible. It's not
It's-
defendable by today's
It's
standards.
just very,
Yeah,
very
well, that's-
problematic. So let's get that done before we move into the repairs, because we need to have the redetermination done before we can do the repairs. So
Because they're large repairs, they're larger than normal.
We're looking at large repairs, and it was pointed out at a meeting we had with landowners that there's some people paying a lot more, many times more per acre than some of the other people on the system.
Well, and it's just another, we need to get, like you said, a lot of these redetermined, so.
I'd like to just start making this a regular thing and
Yeah,
trying to get
yeah.
ahead of the game rather than kind of reacting, which
Yeah.
was what we've been doing in the past.
I agree.
Were there petitions then from folks to have this done too, or? were there-
They just made a verbal request. They didn't actually no formal signed petition.
We have the authority to redetermine the
Yeah.
ditch on our own as a
Right.
ditch authority.
I think we can do them all in the whole county.
We could, yeah.
We could.
If we had the staff to do it.
If we had.
If we had this,
I know.
at the rate we're doing, it'll take us another at least 10 years.
Really?
At the rate we're going right now. So we have a lot of ditches to redetermine yet.
Okay. I know a lot of counties have actually passed resolutions that they're gonna try to do them,
Yeah.
all of them in the county and try to get them
Yeah,
done.
and they've usually taken like Martin County, Ferguson County, about 20 years to redetermine everything.
Oh,
Well, and you've had a pretty good winter. You've been able to work quite a bit this
Well,
winter, haven't you?
That's why I'm doing this now, because the viewers are a little bit ahead of schedule here, so I wanted to make sure we get these on their list
Okay.
there.
Great.
So,
sounds good. Well, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Craig.
Craig.
Yeah.
Craig.
Did we go faster than we thought we were gonna go?
A little bit.
Wasn't sure.
We're still trying to figure out this new agenda, so
Okay,
apologize
yeah.
for some kinks.
Oh,
No, there's Phil.
he's here right now.
Come on out, Phil.
Man of the hour.
Saved by the bell.
I know, I'm trying to slow it down and I just can't
And
seem
your
to.
chief associate was here before you.
I thought I was doing
Drew's
really
looking at me
well.
like, well, he can't do this.
You can do it, Dan.
I gotta say, you guys
I
are
know you're covered.
good. Right on the money.
I saw Darren was starting to look a little nervous over there. No.
I could have come up and told a few jokes, I suppose.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
morning.
Welcome.
Mr. Chair, good to see you all.
Yeah, morning.
I have just 3 action items to start with, and the first of those being in child support, and it is our cooperative arrangement, is what they refer to it as, for Human Services, the Attorney's Office, and the Sheriff's Office to work together to be able to be reimbursed for the child support program. It really allows the Human Service workers to administer the program, the county attorney to provide the legal services necessary, and the sheriff to perform activities of service and other things that we need to operate the program. The budget is $135,000 per year, which is a small increase from previous, and the term is January 1st of 18 through December 31st of 2019. And then just a couple of administrative issues. The first, community appointments. 2 additional community members to the Mental Health Task Force, Tamara Hansen from District 1 and Steve Whiteman from District 3. There's Mark over there. And then finally, just a resolution, and I'll maybe walk the board through that. I'm sure you were able to see it in the packet. This is a sponsored resolution from AMC, so they recommended it to us, and Bob and I talked about it some, for people with behavioral health, and regarding regional crisis intervention specific to crisis centers, and also creation of additional supportive housing options. So those 2 areas. The resolution itself is in your packet. The first part of that really just outlines the capital investment for behavioral health crisis program facilities, and then again talks about supportive housing. The components of the resolution are regarding mental health continuum of care that is underdeveloped, a system that does not have a capacity to consistently respond to the volume of need we have. Individuals experiencing mental health are often diverted to jail, as we know well here, and other facilities. When they're ready for discharge, often it's hard to also have those people be able to be released in a timely way, and so there are times that they are detained at their place just waiting for supportive housing. The resolution gets to the gaps that are damaging to the individuals and the families, but also inefficient use of taxpayer dollars. And the final whereas talks about improving the overall mental health continuum of care. So it says, be it resolved, Blue Earth County supports state capital investments for regional behavioral health crisis program facilities, permanent supportive housing for people with behavioral health needs. And those are my action items for today.
Very good.
I'll move approval. Second.
We've got a motion from Commissioner Brunder for approval and a second from Commissioner people. And then is there any discussion or comments about
Mr.
it?
Chair, I got just a quick question. How long have we been doing the child support cooperative agreement?
Boy, as long as I
Yeah,
know.
I
Now,
was
it has changed some, Commissioner, that they've kind of structured it and made it more centralized as far as a state document. So there has been some changes to that, but as far as our agencies working together, that's
Quite a
been
while.
many, many years, I believe.
Predates me, so it's really old.
Predates Bobby.
That's good. It seems like it's a good program. So
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Well, I just had a comment or question too. So this is that portion of our child support system where if somebody really isn't going to be cooperative in providing support for one of their children because they're not together anymore, and then there's enforcement that's involved, and then we get our county attorneys involved.
Right, so
And-
there might be some service of papers that the sheriff does for us. Pat's office works very closely with us both to set up the court actions on if it's not really even that contested, but certainly if it would become contested, all of those pieces would go through the county attorney's office. And then obviously our staff do work though with people. It's not always with contested cases, so sometimes it's just that they can come to the county if there maybe it was a divorce or maybe there was never a marriage in the first place and work out the child support. And so
see.
that gets processed through our staff in human services. So there's a whole system, it's called
I know.
PRISM, that is another state operated system that actually needs updating. But it really is the core of how we do process those cases, and then we work really closely with Pat's attorneys as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard issues regarding this too in the human services at NACO. It's a
Right.
big issue across the country and trying to resolve and trying to make things a little more streamlined and user-friendly,
Right.
so to speak.
Right.
And I know Bob's aware of those. There's had a lot of talks over the years on those, and
Absolutely.
I've popped into some of them just to
Yep.
listen, to see what it's about. So it's to provide a better safety net for our kids so that they don't just get paid for by the county or the federal government or.
Our workers' passion are all about what you just said. If you talk to them about this function, it's about the kids, making sure the kids get that support they need, and that's
Yeah.
their passion. So that's why there is so much really at stake to
Yeah.
make sure we get that right.
Yep. It's a big issue. It
Mhm.
really is a big issue in our culture. So, any other discussion? I know I like this resolution. I mean, it's for looking at the supporting capital investments in regional areas that could be helping to build possibly a facility,
Right.
actually physical plant
Right.
for more mental health services, and it's much needed. I don't know what they're going to look like.
Right.
You know, they tried those other, what was it, 16-bed units or something,
Yeah,
and those just didn't
yeah.
seem to work as well. But
My editorial, Mr. Chair, would just be that you all would know that we're very supportive of the idea of a crisis center, and ours has been wildly successful and is looking to expand. And so every community, as far as I'm concerned, could benefit from having a crisis center. Sometimes, and when we first looked at our jail project, we thought a triage center might also work, and the only difference that I see is that sometimes you can recreate some of those bottlenecks that we see at the emergency department or in the jail, and so you don't really want to recreate the problem just in another facility. So you have to make sure their mission is more crisis center focused, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then where we're really interested is in that second part of the resolution of supportive housing. We agree that there's often not a real fluid transition when people are in care. It's sometimes hard to get them in, it's sometimes hard to get them out. And that's about where do they go and all of that.
yeah, so we'll be looking at adding more beds
Yeah,
to our region.
right, absolutely. And
So
those
it's
kind of
for-
supportive housing beds that might have some supports or at
Yeah.
least be hooked up in the continuum of care so that
Well, that
they have a
sounds like
place to go.
I think the board agrees that that's something we need.
Mr. Chair, I might just add that since this is supposedly a bonding year for the legislature, that's the kind of initiative behind this resolution, is to support a potential bonding resolution to support that infrastructure. It also is important to counties in terms of those cost shares that have been thrust upon counties for people that can't get out of Anoka, or because there aren't those supportive housing options in the community.
Yeah.
Is this the one, Bill, do you know, that Senator Dave Senjum?
It's
from-
Senjum,
Yeah,
yes,
'cause
correct.
he's capital bonding
Right,
right now. and
it
this
is.
probably his last term.
Yes, a little bit of a swan song for
There's a-
Senator, right.
It's a good shot we might get it, at least if they're nice enough to realize it's a problem and they'll give the senator who's been there a long time something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know it was his passion, but.
And he spent a lot of time yes.
Yeah.
He spent a lot of time, Commissioner, on that last session as well, so table setting, and then I think he has high hopes that something will come along this, yes.
All right.
That's awesome.
Very good, very good.
It's definitely needed. I don't know what our numbers are now, but it's definitely needed.
Right. And regionally, I might say too, is that, you know, right in Mankato, we have often more than most, but we serve a region, as you all know very well, and so I think within our region, more supportive housing is a
No, I
critical
know
need.
that. And I know that even this program, it's a nonprofit through LSS, the REACH.
Yes, absolutely.
I know that your
Yes.
departments work closely with them
Right.
sometimes. They've got youth that are turning 18 or maybe 19, because they help people up to age, I think, 24.
Right.
And so
It's really
there's no place for some of these folks. They
Right.
need some consistency.
that transition, right?
Yeah.
Commissioner?
So, well, anything else? Okay, all those in favor of these signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, just a few informational discussion items, pretty straightforward. I'm going to review some detox costs and analysis, and then also the work of our billing team, and then certainly turn it over here to Darren to talk about our Human Service Advisory Committee meeting that met recently. The first slide is just a description of the two graphics that follow a 7-year analysis of overall detox costs. And then the second slide is a cost analysis, which really puts the overall cost, including transportation, alongside the costs that we pay minus the fees paid by individuals, and some insurance is less and less as we go forward. But certainly very important to us to see a downward trend. Our detox costs are very high compared to any other community our size, but we certainly have seen a change, and some of that's, I think, a byproduct. We haven't targeted it directly through the jail project, but it certainly is working closer with law enforcement has had a net effect of just different kinds of decision making that's happened. And so you see the high point in 2015 and our current performance or cost at $389,000. The next slide kind of breaks that into a little bit more detail. The total detox costs include transportation contracts we have with law enforcement to back up, especially in the New Ulm facility when there needs to be additional transportation. And then you see the breakout of net cost for the county at the $222,000 versus $167,000 of fees collected. And the third graph is also very straightforward. There's a few talking points at the bottom. This is a revenue chart. It includes public health areas that we bill for. A lot of the grants, as we know in public health, are small, and it takes a lot of tracking, especially through Kelly's efforts. And so we appreciate her work to put together all of those things into something that looks like a nice tight bundle, but there is a lot of fragment in the small buckets of money that we get. Targeted case management, which is the way we really bill for case management services across the board. So there's several kinds of case management that we bill for. And then mental health center, which is a major driver of cost, but it also, we have a lot of revenue that goes through the prescribers and all that in our clinic. The revenue is from insurance, medical assistance, Medicare, commercial insurance, and self-pay, depending on how people hit the sliding fee. So we have a sliding fee schedule based on income. And then we formed a billing team to try to specialize in some of these areas. And you can see the net effect of that has been very successful from 2015 to the current, where we're almost at $1 million of increase over those 3 years. So we're very proud of that. Our folks that are wired that way, which I can say I'm not, are very good at what they do, and they're very detail oriented, and they kind of just make sure that we get every dollar that we can, which I know represents all of us in this room very well. So we appreciate their efforts, and very glad that we're seeing some good success in that area. And that's really all I have for for action, I mean, for discussion items. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I just had one question. I see the detox is way down, comparatively speaking, in 17.
Right.
I know partially why that could be down.
Right.
Was it just better billing, do you think, or?
No, I think the overall was down, and I think it is that we're just working so much closer with law enforcement and in some of the Yellow Line project and philosophy that over the last really 3 years now, there's been a net effect of just more awareness, so choices of maybe sending people home or calling for a sober ride or working with our social worker in the jail that comes up with a plan that makes sure there's stability of the chemicals on board. But depending on what's all transpired and what they're blowing, what they have on board as far as the chemicals in their system, I think law enforcement has just been more creative, to be honest.
That's good.
It's really good.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt where it comes from. It's from law enforcement. Yes.
Very good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
what is the process for trying to collect the money, and do we do that, or does the evaluation center do that?
That's a really good question. I think there's actually a split out. The evaluation center does kind of have a two-tiered rate for counties because they do try to collect some of that, but we on the back end do collections, and we also use revenue recapture when there's a bill that's outstanding that we can put them on revenue recapture. If there's any tax money that comes back, we can intercept that money. So we definitely kind of share some of that. It has flopped back and forth. It's a great question because it's flopped back and forth with the detox provider several times. Who does it? So yeah.
Thank you.
Detox will routinely bills them if they know that they have insurance.
Right.
Okay, good.
They've been getting less and less successful with some of these.
Right.
Insurance agencies have stopped paying for detox.
That's right,
services.
Commissioner. Yeah.
Good to know, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just recognize Darren too, this last session I wasn't at it, but for the advisory committee there was a change in that Jay is still on the committee but not the chair, and so Darren's been willing to take that on. We very much appreciate that, so I just want to recognize his willingness to really volunteer in that way.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't know how you're going to do it, Darren.
Very big shoes.
How long
Jay was doing
Jay was in there?
Yeah.
I think it was like 7 years.
Is that right?
7 years.
I think
okay.
still on the, he just isn't.
Yeah, it's, I'm in my 8th year now, and I can't remember anybody else but Jay, so.
Right.
He did a good job, though, too.
Well, thank
Yes,
you
he
for doing
did.
it, Darren.
Yes, thanks for jumping in.
Thank you,
Well,
Jay.
thank
and
you.
thank you for stepping
Yeah.
up, Darren.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of where I wanted to start, is that I'm before you now as the new chairman of our committee. We sincerely appreciate the service that Jay has given over the last 7 years. He just, for personal reasons, decided he did not want to do it, and I appreciate the faith of my fellow committee members in asking me to step up. So yeah, you'll be seeing a new face at least for a period of time here, and I look forward to future meetings. Also, we did not, and that happened in the last meeting because we did not have a January meeting due to weather. We were able to welcome a new member to our Human Services Advisory Committee, Mr. Hussein Osman, and we were able to introduce him to the group. But also because it was an election, if you will, nomination meeting, mostly the rest of the discussion was taken up by discussion of our 2 individual task force reports. The first of those was the Mental Health Task Force. They had met on February 1st, and what was highlighted was Erica Kozer, who's the pastor at Centenary United Methodist Church, speaking about the Holy Grounds and Connections ministry that they have there, that is serving meals and providing assistance to individuals in our community as part of that rotational shelter that many churches in the Mankato community take part in. That program, if you're not already aware, is serving up to around 30 people per night, and the rotating shelter already, well, not already, I'm sorry, but in 2017 served in excess of 23,000 meals. So
That's amazing.
serving a very
God bless
important,
those folks. That's amazing.
well, certainly, very important. The Yellow Line project was also discussed. However, I think this committee is very aware of that program, so I won't go into too many details there. And then also the mission of the task force was something that was discussed relative to future speakers in the group's direction for 2018, and I will actually come back to that as it applies to our own committee as well here shortly. For the Social Services Task Force, that task force met on February 5th. Their speaker was Ann Bruskoff, I hope I pronounced it correctly, who was discussing periodic drug testing of consumers of that particular area. They also had a discussion, which I found to be very fascinating, about the relationship between social services and Blue Earth County Sheriff's Department, and the assignment of Tim Wendler, who is the assigned resource for social services. He actually is embedded within their department, even though he is an individual that is essentially a Sheriff's Department employee, and works very closely with that team around investigations of child protection. Rhonda and Tim work very tightly and in tandem, especially on a lot of these investigations and visits, that are sometimes thought to be quite, emotionally fraught and dangerous perhaps at times. It's been a very good partnership between the departments, and one that continues to this day. And then the last thing that was mentioned was a program that, for those of you that aren't aware, I also serve on the Mankato Area School Board. And we find this to be a very valuable program there as well. But the Backpack Food Program, which allows families with school-age children to have the option to sign up for much-needed food to assure that our students have the nutrition that they need in order to effectively learn within our schools. And that's been a very successful program as well. The director's report, and this goes back to the kind of discussion we are currently as a committee in discussion of the potential of changing the format of our committee meeting structure to a quarterly basis. This is something that was first introduced at our February meeting that we will be discussing further in March. The change, if at least as it's currently on the table, would be to go to 4 meetings quarterly, longer meetings that would have a focus on reviewing for at least one of those meetings the annual human services budget, one that would be focused on changes in services in public health, and then the other 2 that would have a focus tentatively on changes in services, service trends, of other social service disciplines. We would continue as appropriate to have speakers attend our meetings, and we would be looking at an increase in per diem, which would still be an overall savings for the county just simply because of the reduced number of meetings. This is still something that is under discussion and debate by the committee, and hope to have an update for you after our next meeting. But we're also looking at what those possible dates may be as well. And that largely concludes all of my comments, and any questions from the commissioners.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So when you have those meetings, how long do your meetings, are they last how long do they last now about?
Currently, our meetings are lasting about an hour, sometimes a little longer. So we would be looking at going to like 2 hours to assure that the business and the discussions we want to have are in a quarterly format adequately addressed.
Thank you.
And currently, is there about 8 to 10 meetings a year? Or what is
I
it?
think we're at 8, yes.
About 8?
That's right.
We
You take off a
typically
couple
take
in the
off
summer?
about 2 months in the summer,
Yep.
and then the
Holiday.
month of, let's see, no, there would be 9 meetings, because we're typically taking off, I think, 3
yeah.
months.
Right.
December's off too.
Yeah.
Yeah, December, I think.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
All right.
Any other questions or comments from?
I don't. Good report.
It sounds good to me.
report.
I mean, it sounds like a good report and
Again, congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
yeah, thank you very much. So,
That's it.
there's no other action items, I believe, so thank you very much for your report. And we have
Thanks,
to
guys.
move on
Thank
to
you
our
all. Good to
Have a
see
good
you.
day.
P&Z.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. No, it's a little after 9:30. We've got our planning and zoning with our land use administrator, Mr. George Leary. And we've got, what, 3 items, I believe?
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Let's see here. Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
PC 04-18 is a request from Arthur and Alice Lindberg for review and approval of a conditional use permit to allow a bonus lot dwelling. The property is zoned agricultural and is located in the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 17, Decoria Township. Ms. Ascendo presented the staff report. The applicants were present and made no further comment. There was no public comment. The Planning Commission noted that the proposal is a prime example of why the Planning Commission and County Board decided not to eliminate the bonus lot provision from Section 24-111 of the Blue Earth County zoning ordinance during its 2012 review. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is a resolution.
Okay, so we've got PC 04-18 here before us today. I suppose I could open this up now then for a public comment, public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this PC 04-18? Anybody here in our audience that would like to come and make any comments or questions regarding PC 04-18? I'll ask one more time. Anybody here that would like to make a comment, please come up to the podium. And it doesn't look like anybody's going to be making a comment, so we'll close that public comment portion of the hearing here, and would like to bring it back to the board then for resolution. Yeah.
I'd move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Strumberg moved. Commissioner Brunder seconded PC 04-18 for a bonus, what's it called, a bonus lot?
Bonus lot.
Is there any discussion or questions?
I do.
Thank you.
Could you please, for the public, explain what a bonus lot is?
Sure. In the agricultural district, you're allowed one residential development right per quarter section.
Mm-hmm.
In our zoning ordinance, you are allowed an additional development right in the form of a bonus lot on it if you have an area in the ag district that's not been tilled in the past 10 years.
Okay.
So in this particular parcel, there was some ground that was maybe in CRP.
It was a conservation.
In some type of conservation program. It has since, the contract has run out and they've decided not to put it back there. So then they have an area that has not been disturbed in the last 10 years, and so they're able to apply for this additional building right.
Okay. I'm sure most people that would read the would not understand that. That's why I wanted you to explain that publicly.
That was a very good question, because that was in my mind too. Just wondering really how that happens, because I didn't know what a bonus lot really was. I haven't seen one for here at the board.
Yeah, we've done, Mr. Chair,
Couple.
we've done 2 or 3. Not real common practice, but as mentioned in the report, we discussed this a while ago and decided not to remove it because it was actually supposed to be removed back in the 90s. And it just never got removed. And I supported leaving it in there because it is getting us a piece of property that's not prime ag land, putting a house on it and making it into some productive tax roll money. And it's good use of the land.
Good use.
My thoughts are. So we'll take it one step further and let the staff handle these and not even bring them to conditional use permit process would be my thought, but that's another discussion.
In this situation too, Mr. Chairman, there, the pieces of farmland that were enrolled in this conservation program, which has since expired, were small, uneven pieces of farmland. And with today's kind of equipment, it just wasn't easy for them to get in there. So I think that too gave the Planning Commission some comfort on why, in this case, it is a good thing.
Okay. Yeah, it looked like an irregular shaped area kind of there. Any other comments or questions before we call the question?
Mr. Chair, except that this bonus lot thing is very necessary, and that using the word bonus,
I know.
The Oklahoma land grab or something, I don't know. Bonus, where does that come from?
All right, yeah.
That's your history there.
Okay.
Oklahoma. Anyway.
Okay.
Good.
So I think we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Let's move on to our PC 05-18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 05-18 is a request from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers for review and approval of a conditional use permit to allow for a union hall to be operated in a vacant building. The project is located in the southwest quarter of Section 14, South Bend Township. The property is zoned rural town site and is within the Urban Fringe Overlay District of the City of Mankato. Ms. Ascendo presented the staff report. The applicant was present and made no further comment. There was no public comment and little discussion by the Planning Commission. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is the resolution.
All right, I'd like to open this up for public comment then, PC 05-18. If there's anybody here that would like to make a comment or an inquiry regarding this planning and zoning action, please come forward to the microphone. Is there anybody here in the audience that would like to come forward and make a comment on PC 05-18? I'll ask the third time. If there's anybody here who would like to make a comment, please come to the podium on PC 05-18. I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and bring it back to the board for board action.
Move approval.
Second.
We've got a motion and a couple of seconds. Jesse, you'll have to figure out.
I have it.
You got it? Okay. Do we have any comments or questions about this?
It was a union hall for many years.
I thought so.
That's the one off
Yeah.
169
Yeah,
in South.
right there by the nursing home.
Okay.
Was it empty?
It was
Yeah.
empty for a while, I think.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, it's probably.
Good
Yeah,
use,
I've seen
good
quite a
use
few
for a
years.
vacant building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I appreciate the fact that the union decided to come up and come back and obviously they're going to have to upgrade it and fix it up, and that's always, you can take a vacant building and make use of it. That's a good thing.
Sounds good. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Aaron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 02-18 is a request from Northern States Power Company and Lab USA for review and approval of a conditional use permit to allow for the mining of ash and for construction and operation of an ash processing facility. The proposed facility will recover and remove ferrous and non-ferrous metals from the combustor ash generated by the Wilmarth Steam Plant and from the existing ash landfill associated with the Wilmarth Ash Disposal Facility. The property is zoned conservation and agricultural. It is also located within the Urban Fringe Overlay District of the City of Mankato and has a small portion within the Shoreland Overlay District of the Blue Earth River. The property is located in part of the northeast quarter of the northwest quarter and part of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 32, South Bend Township. Mr. Stubbs presented the staff report. The applicants were present and made no further comment. There was no public comment. The Planning Commission commented on the thoroughness of the staff report. It was noted that the environmental assessment worksheet prepared for the Red Wing project will be using identical technology and was very thorough and properly addressed concerns presented. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is the resolution.
All right, so we've got PC 06, is it, 18?
02.
02. Sorry, I didn't have it written down right. Regarding the mining and processing of ash. And I'll open this up for public comment then. Is there anybody here that would like to come forward to talk and say a few things or the plans? I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody here who'd like to come forward and say a few words about the project?
I certainly could.
Yeah, sure, that'd be very good. We might even have a question for you. And then state your name and where you live or what's your position.
Thanks, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Kenny Flett. I'm Vice President of Operations with Lab USA. We're based in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we have facilities we're either operating or building around the country. The installation itself is purely a mechanical process. Ash goes in one end, same ash comes out the other end, sands the metals. And it consists of conveyor belts, overbelt magnets, and eddy current machines. So that's as simple as it gets. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. If
the board have any questions?
I don't at this time.
No, anybody?
It's good.
I've got one, but should I wait? Should I hold it until later on we have some discussion? Or not?
No, you can ask. He's up
Oh,
next.
okay.
You're the chair.
Since you're right there.
Sure.
I was just curious because I've never seen this, myself. I did read up on the one that was put together in Red Wing, Minnesota, so I got some educational ideas from that. And I was just curious: is there any chance that there's going to be dust from this getting out into the air and blowing around in that area, do you think, Mike?
No,
During the mining?
This seems to be probably the primary concern of communities. The ash itself is inherently wet. It's moist. It has, this particular ash has roughly 22% moisture content. So it's not conducive to dust. Even with, we don't dry it, we run it as that 22%. So the only way it would happen in the middle of summer, you would see, if it was very windy, you might see some fugitive dust if it was an open air facility. This facility will be completely enclosed to mitigate any dust concerns as far as climate change.
And you'll be using the hoop buildings, I know.
Correct, yeah.
Long hoop buildings.
Yep.
But when it's being mined, I was just wondering do they just use a front-end loader?
Front-end loader, but again, it's inherently wet, so it's just picked up and
brought
placed
over
in.
there.
So, yeah. So it would be no different than the ash itself sitting there. It's not. It doesn't come up as a real dry.
And then it has to go back into a cell.
Yes. There is. Excel has decided to expand their landfill, and the new cell will be the initial used for the initial placement of the fresh ash. So.
Anybody else? Thank you. We might have a few more questions.
Sure.
Later on.
That sounds good.
Thank you. All right. So I'll bring it back to the board for board action.
Move to approve.
Well, second.
We've got Commissioner Stromberg and whoever Jesse's got marked down for a second. Mark. Okay. And I believe this is probably in your district.
It's in your district.
Yeah. So this is out at the Ponderosa, correct? Do we have any discussion items here with it or any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd just like to comment that it's out at the Ponderosa. It's a perfect fit for something like this, and obviously the ash is there, and they need the ash. So to me, it looked like a really good fit for this type of operation, and after reading through the information, it looks like they're doing it in other places. So I think it's a great opportunity for Blue Earth County and this organization to get some more stuff out of our system.
Good. Yes, that's my opinion too. If we can pull some stuff out of the ash that has some value, why not, rather than just bury it?
Gives a more longevity for landfill.
And I've just got a couple comments too. It's okay, you're done. I was just thinking about it, the process or the timeline, so they come for a CUP, conditional use permit, before then looking at trying to do the construction of the site and for processing the ash. And I was just wondering what concerns might we have then. I know that they'll have to look at stormwater runoff. We've already got a pond there, and I don't know what our capacity is. I'm just curious if there's going to have to be another pond made of some sort for the runoff.
Mr. Chairman, so there are currently 2 ponds, one on the west side of the proposed project and one on the east side. At some point, the landfill was sloped in a way that really that west pond was not being utilized. Everything was going east. With the expansion of the ash landfill, Xcel Energy was into some negotiations with Blue Earth County to do a shared stormwater pond on the east side, because that expansion, that proposed expansion on the the approved expansion on the east side is going to go into where that current pond is on the east. So that pond is being moved further east, and this project will then utilize that west stormwater pond that is really being underutilized.
Oh, okay. For stormwater runoff.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Then the only other thing that was on my mind, of course, was the treatment, the water treatment. I know in Red Wing they have it go to the city municipal wastewater treatment plant. I was just curious about, it sounds like the plans are it's going to go to the Mankato wastewater treatment plant. I wasn't sure I don't know.
So there are underground leachate tanks that are pumped, and then that water is sent out. The stormwater is required to be tested quarterly for presence of heavy metals, dissolved solids, suspended solids, that type of stuff.
This gentleman was motioning as if he could come up and make a comment too. Go ahead, come on up to the microphone. Say your name and what you do.
I'm Chuck Conkers. I'm with Xcel Energy, a project manager associated with the Woolmarth ash disposal site. I can speak to the operations. All contact water, any water coming in contact with ash is collected and ultimately trucked to the Mankato wastewater treatment, whether it's in our landfill or with LabUSA. So contact water will be treated as leachate and taken to the wastewater treatment for treatment and disposal.
That's what I was wondering. I figured something like that might be going on.
Yeah.
I know that when you haul it in there, the ash, I would think it's going to be dripping almost. I mean, there'll be water coming off of it, I would think, as you're processing it. I don't.
Yeah, ash is somewhat unique in the sense it's kind of like sand down at the beach, you know. It looks dry when you initially put it in the truck, but after you haul it 10 miles, it separates. The water separates out. But it's a small fraction. And also, LabUSA has structured or sized their building so they can mix the loads and kind of get more of a homogeneous in-stream or inflow of material coming in. So we're not expecting significant water coming off the ash that's being delivered to LabUSA.
Okay.
So,
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay, anything else?
Mr. Chair, the only comment I have is I want a tour of this when it's up and running.
Yeah.
I gotta see how this works.
Can I go with you?
Absolutely.
I just think it's amazing technology.
I'd like to see it.
Is there a date line when,
Yeah.
that you're looking at?
Right now, the timeline would be we would begin commissioning in September with running ash in October of this year, barring any unforeseen circumstances. We still have to go through the MPCA, and they're not known for their
We understand.
expediency, shall we say. So that's really our bottleneck at this point as far as moving forward. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it seems like the letter that I read sounded like they weren't going to stand in your way for this action today. And they said
every indication says that they're going to approve, but
Yeah.
they unfortunately still have hoops they need to jump through, and
Okay.
they make us jump through them as well. So,
Which is good.
That's good.
But I will extend the invitation. You're all welcome to come and tour the site.
Thank
so.
you.
All right.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments, we'll have to, did we call for the question on this?
We haven't.
We have not called the question on this, so. all
I
those
call
in-
the question.
Yeah, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, both of you, Aaron and George.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah. I gotta get my computer up and running again here.
Could we have a short break?
Can we take a break?
Commissioner has a request for a short break. How
good
long
time.
should we take a break for? See, we've got
We got plenty of time.
got plenty of time, yep. So
Yeah.
10 minutes would be good. Okay. See you back here shortly after 10 o'clock. Okay. Well, welcome back after our break. I think we'll just move right into our administrative services, and Bob.
Right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for February 6th.
So moved.
We've got a motion for approval from...
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We've got the bills.
Next up would be the bills, yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I would move the bills.
Second.
Move the bills. Oh, excuse me, questions or comments now? That was out of order.
That's okay.
Go ahead. Anybody?
I do have a few. I just question, first of all, the very first one on there is 180 Degrees Incorporated. Rule 4 administer, what is that?
That's Rural 4 is a portion of rural related to child foster care.
Okay.
So this is a private nonprofit running a foster care setting. So there's an administrative fee that they receive.
And 180 Degrees is
a vendor that provides that child care service.
Okay. And the next one I have is Icon Constructors LLC.
That's what I've got. The 111,000 one?
111,000.
Yeah.
That is County Road 5, those 3 bridges that have been worked on.
Oh, okay.
Sure. And obviously, I know what Southern Minnesota Construction is, but they have one for $211,000. What is that for? What road project?
That is County Road 12.
Okay.
Project.
And let me see. I don't think I have any more, but thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody else have any questions on the bills?
I don't at this time.
Nope, not at this time.
All right, well, we can bring it back then for calling the question on it. Is there any, all those in favor of approving the bills, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's,
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 7 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. There are 3 action items today as well as informational items. The first action item is authorization for the County Board Chairperson and the County Administrator to sign an agreement with the AFSCME group that represents our Human Services staff. This is a contract that has reached a tentative agreement covering the 3-year period, including 2018, 19, and 20. I'll cover maybe both items A and B since they are both AFSCME contracts, the item B being for our courthouse employees or bargaining group. So all the agreements that I'll talk about here impact one or the other of those contracts or both. Some of the major components of the tentative agreement are that we would have, as I said, a 3-year agreement. The general wage adjustments for each of those years is set at 2%, so the same pattern that's been established with our other bargaining groups. Under this particular tentative agreement, we also are going from a 12-step pay scale to, or a 10-step pay scale, pardon me, to a 12-step, adding 1 step at the top of the scale, but also adding a step at the bottom of the scale to offset some of that increase. As a part of this agreement, we also have authorized or agreed to a payout of a portion of a sick leave accrual bank. After 20 years of service, employees in these bargaining groups would be eligible to receive 25% of their sick leave paid out. We currently have a number of bargaining units that after 15 years receive that 25% accumulated sick leave payout.
how many years is it now, Bob, going to be?
It'll be 20 under this
So
agreement.
it's moving up a little bit then.
Yes. For
Wow.
for these employees who have not been eligible for that payout in the past.
Oh.
In return for that, we did get some concessions from these unions regarding health insurance, and so effective 1/1 of 2019, we'll have a change in the employee-employer share of health insurance, going from 75% employer share for family coverage to 70%, so we're lowering the county's share there. In the past, single coverage has been 100% employer paid. We'll be moving to a 90% employer paid agreement under this agreement. In addition to those insurance changes, we also introduced the idea of a high deductible health plan with a health savings account into the contract effective 1/1 of 19 as well. In that agreement, along with those plan options being made available to our employees, there would be an employer contribution towards that high deductible plan. The high deductibles will be set at $2,700 for single coverage and $5,400 for family coverage. The employer contribution to that HSA to cover a portion of that deductible would be half of that amount, so $1,350 for singles and $2,700 for family coverage. Those contributions we estimate will roughly equate the amount of premium savings we're likely to see by offering that plan, so it's intended to kind of bend the curve, so to speak, on our insurance costs rather than creating immediate savings. But we're hopeful that our employees will see that as a nice health insurance option. In addition to those changes, we also will be sunsetting our double gold plan, which is kind of a rich plan. So effective 1/1/19, we will no longer offer that to new employee enrollment into that plan. There were a number of other kind of smaller language changes and other options that if the board is interested, I could run through them all, but those were the highlights for this particular contractual arrangement.
And then, of course, there's a, do you want us to do action on each individual one?
I think that would be best, Mr. Chair, yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I'll move the
First one?
first one. I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the,
Human Services.
yep, the Human Services AFSCME contract that was negotiated in a second. Any further questions or discussion?
I just have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you.
A lot of time and energy went into this. None of the commissioners are on negotiations anymore.
I know.
But I know the staff spent a lot of time on this. It's a very hard discussion to have when you're trying to reduce insurance rates, policies, and that's such a big issue for the county on the paying end, but hard for the employees. So I commend the staff on both ends, management side and the union side, to negotiate this and get it done. So congratulations, if it passes.
I agree.
Just a lot of work stuck into it, is my point.
I've worked on the other side, back when I was a police officer. I was on the union negotiating team, and it takes a lot of time, energy from each individual, and I really commend Bob and also the employees that worked on this, and because you have to come into an agreement, and that's amazing that we can do this without having it going to another form of
Right.
intervention.
Well, this is a huge step to change the healthcare.
Right.
Is a huge step in the right direction. I don't think I've seen any changes in the 30-some years I've been with the county.
Wow.
This is huge. So
And
thanks for your work on that.
Yeah, and then ultimately, of course, we have to look at this and decide is this a good thing, and as a board, because it wouldn't happen without our approval.
Right.
Yep.
So,
have we done that yet?
no.
No?
Just trying to keep everybody in suspense.
But I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with most of these items. I'm sure we're trying to bring some kind of consistency into the future too, Bob. When these things happen, aren't we? We're trying to, if we're going to make changes, which are sometimes hard to make, still trying to be consistent with some of those changes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we did sit at the table and talk with these bargaining groups about needing to focus a little more time, especially on the health insurance area. When we looked back at some of our general wage adjustments and the increases we were seeing in our health insurance costs, it's an overall package. We talked about that quite a bit, that there's only so much money to go around, and that we needed to find a package deal that was reasonable in terms of rewarding or paying our employees at a higher level, but also recognizing that health insurance coverage was part of that compensation package. And so we believe that with some of the changes in our plan offerings, that it'll provide opportunities for our employees to get the health coverage they need to protect themselves and their families, but also control our costs as the employer.
Very good.
Yeah. Commend you. Yeah, you did a lot of work, and the staff did a lot of work.
Who else works with you on this then, Bob? Is it Krista that works alongside with you, or who
Yeah,
else
we
works?
have a team representing the employer, myself, the HR director, Chris Damas, Human Service Director, and the Deputy County Administrator, Josh Milo and Phil Clausen, and then Jesse Anderson also is part of our team.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Let's go on to the third item then.
Bob, I'll move the courthouse.
Oh, excuse me, the second item.
I'll
Yes.
second that.
So we've got a motion for approval and a second. And this would be for the courthouse AFSCME employees. And is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to note same conversation we
Yep.
had previously.
Yep.
Ditto for all of this.
Okay. Pretty much the same thing, isn't
Yeah.
it, Bob?
It is.
Okay.
There are unique features for each bargaining group depending on employee groups, but the overall construct is very similar.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. And now the authorization to increase from a, basically it looks like about a 3/4 to a full-time assistant county attorney in the attorney's office.
I'd move approval.
Second.
We've got a motion for approval and a second. Anybody? Did you second, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion or questions about this? Any comments from our county attorney?
No, I would appreciate approval.
I think, you know, obviously, every month we listen to Pat and we find out how much work that the county attorney's office is doing and how much more just, you know, one of the issues with having a growing county is we have growing issues. And with that, we have to make sure we take care of our citizens with a good county attorney's office. And so for that reason, I will certainly approve this.
I do appreciate the support, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And you've got it in your budget and everything, it's...
Well, we'll shift some monies around because we have the, in part, the approval of the additional position from the budget from last year, and we are in the process of hiring, and hopefully by sometime in May we'll get that individual hired. So we'll be able to shift some money from one way to the other.
Okay, good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Bob, these informational items we've got here, quite a few of them.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first 4 out of 5 are all positions that are being filled. One taxpayer services specialist, a part-time position there. We have filled a social worker position, as well as lateral transfer, which will mean we'll have to fill that position.
Could you explain the lateral transfer? I mean, by reading it, it looks like you're going social worker disability service to social worker disability service.
That's correct. It's a
What
movement
is
within,
the change?
It's moving from a pure case management role to a min choices assessment role.
Okay.
And so because of the union contract requirement to post, we've included that kind of activity.
Absolutely. I just didn't understand what it was.
I understand. We talked about that internally as well. Is that confusing? And it is a little bit. Then again, we've filled an item D, social worker in the disability services area, as well as filling a custody officer position. So the HR department has been active. Item number F, we did receive a resignation of a probation officer, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. We also received a resignation of a patrol officer in the sheriff's department and have begun recruitment to fill that position. And then we had a 911 dispatcher, a part-time staff person that has completed employment, and we've begun recruitment to refill that position. And lastly, an authorization has been approved to initiate recruitment for a licensed center specialist.
Okay.
Be happy to answer any questions that the board has about those informational items.
It looks like you've had a busy 2 weeks.
It has been active, yes. Moving on, item number 8, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is the government center bids, the kind of second portion of those. You'll recall that at the last meeting, a number of bids were accepted and approved by the county board for that project. Our construction manager, Kraus Anderson, has worked through a number of other bid requests or bid responses, and so we have, I believe, 7 items that are in green in this tab that we're asking for board approval to move forward with the low bidder in those areas. You'll also notice that we have 3 items that are highlighted in red. Those are bid packages that have not been finalized yet. We'll actually be going out to rebid 2 of those items in the next month. The metal panels 7B and the signage 10A. We've got a bid prepared to go out, and then we'll come back later with the landscaping bid at another point in time. So we won't quite be done with everything, assuming approval here today of those 7 items before the board.
I'd move approval.
I second.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Brunder moving for approval and a second by Commissioner People on these government center bid awards. Any questions or comments?
I don't have any comments at this time.
Nope.
Nothing. Good.
The only question I've got is, then, is this 17,496,000 all of this that's on this page? Then now we're pretty much up to that.
Well, that's kind of a running total of all the ones that have been approved, the ones we're presenting today, as well as those items that will be bid again. We just plugged in a budget figure there, so that 17.5 million represents the total of all these bid packages.
And we still have bids yet that have to be approved as time goes on.
The only ones remaining would be those 3 in red.
That's it. Okay.
You know, the 17.5 doesn't include some of the soft costs and some other pieces, so you know, this is still only a partial picture of the overall project.
Okay. Well, good. Sounds good to me.
Yep.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead, Bob.
Item number 9 in your packet, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is a child care forgivable loan program. Many of you are aware of the discussions that have been going on with our mayors and clerks committee. The discussion really started about a year ago in terms of child care needs that our small communities have identified, and so a subcommittee of the mayors and clerks group was established and has been working on putting together a plan for this forgivable loan program. The goal obviously is to expand or improve the availability of child care in those small cities and townships across Blue Earth County. It's a program that will be available to both home-based child care centers as well as center-based care centers, whether they be for-profit or non-for-profit. We did provide some conditions requiring the applicant to provide full-time child care to at least 5 children, and individual cities may require that number to even be higher. In addition, we're requiring that no more than 25% of the children can be directly related to the applicant of the loan. You'll see in the packet the eligible types of projects, whether it be training, equipment needs, building purchase or remodel, creating additional employment to expand a child care business, or other operational costs. The design of the program would provide for up to $10,000 to home-based child care centers that are either licensed or legally non-licensed child care centers, or up to $35,000 for those center-based facilities. This is a forgivable loan, so the term of the loan would be 5 years with interest-only payments required semi-annually, and basically 20% of the loan would be forgiven each year that the center was in operation. After the 5 years, if they're still operating, the loan would be forgiven in its entirety. The funds available for this program are coming out of that revolving loan fund that has been in place since, I believe, the 1980s. It has grown over time as the cities and county have loaned out those funds to businesses in these small communities, and as those loans have been repaid, that fund has grown. It's now over $700,000 available. Under this program, we'd be authorizing up to $365,000 of that fund to be allocated out to the cities and centers that might request funds under this program. So we're bringing it here today for the county board's approval so that it can move forward. The small cities did talk about it at their last meeting, and we're all in favor of it. The city councils have had an opportunity to review this program and provide feedback, and I think they're very supportive of it and are anxious to see it out there. And we already have one applicant that's working on the paperwork, so hopefully there's more in the wings.
Good.
Great. So the only one not eligible is the city of Mankato.
That's correct. It's only for those small cities under 5,000 population and the townships.
And all of our cities outside of Mankato are under 5,000.
Yep. Yes.
So, what would the board like to do?
Move approval. Second. Oh, I'll let you say.
We got two rural commissioners wanting to jump in on this. No, and approve it.
It's anxiously anticipated by the daycare providers out in the rural areas. I've had numerous daycare providers ask me when it will be approved. So I suspect there'll be a lot of loans.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful. We have a motion for approval and a second. Any more discussion on it? Commissioner Struenberg.
And I understand the need for this for small cities. There may be equally a need for the city of Mankato. Is there anything that Blue Earth County, city of Mankato is working on to, because we have a definitely child care issue right here in the city of Mankato. Is there anything that we could work on to assist people that live within the city of Mankato?
There's been no discussion about that to this point. Certainly, if the board wanted to direct us, we could take a look at. The unfortunate thing is we don't have the same sort of resource available that we had here with the small city loan fund, but you know, certainly we could take a look at it.
No, I absolutely understand that, but you know, in talking to some of my constituents, they are looking, well, can we get in on this? And I have to tell them, no, I'm sorry, but it's not for the city of Mankato. So I would certainly like to see us work with the city of Mankato and try to get some sort of funding that because we definitely need it within the city also.
Thank you. Commissioner Purvis?
I just had a comment, Vance. Mary Anderson has been at the meetings where we have discussed this, and he hasn't talked about any, made any requests to be involved in this. So.
That doesn't, Commissioner, Mr. Chair, that doesn't mean that, I know what you're saying, because there's a need.
No, there absolutely is a need.
Maybe
I agree
some
with
kind of thing could, we initiate a discussion anyway, maybe there's some way. It'd probably have to be a different avenue than this, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just saying that maybe we can start looking and working with the city of Mankato to try to get some sort of funding that because as we all know, the child care is not Blue Earth County, rural Blue Earth County. It's the whole county, and it's the whole state of Minnesota and the whole United States. Actually, it's we have a child care issue.
Yep.
So, but something to look at in the future, and that's all I'm asking.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair, I might just add that you're absolutely right. It is a statewide and maybe a nationwide issue. There are a lot of eyes on us right now with this program. I believe DEED is aware of what we're doing, and they have some child care grants and things. Southern Minnesota Initiative Fund also, I believe, is aware of what we're doing, and so I've had discussions with Region 9 Development Commission Executive Director, who is very interested in this. You know, I just think we're gonna put this out, we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah.
I think it might
I agree.
generate some additional discussion down the road, and maybe there will be some additional resources that then could allow us to expand this program and see where it goes.
Okay, thank you.
I've just got a comment too, if it's all right. Oh, Pat, go ahead.
Just as a follow-up on what Mr. Meyer just said, your Region 9 director was on the radio this morning touting this program already.
Oh, very good. Thank you. It's good to know.
We hadn't even passed it yet, wow.
The pressure's on.
So, and related to what Vance had brought up, you know, the child care need, which is beyond even just this program, which is a small kind of an incentive program to get people started, to start new, or to revamp and enlarge what's already going. I know that there's been several meetings locally of a large group of daycare providers, both in-house and centers, and there's issues that they brought up that, you know, go beyond just getting some funding for expansion or for creating a new daycare. There is a need for more daycare, so we're trying to get that little niche in there. The one questions that they've got is the licensing requirements, which have exploded in the last 5 years, which has driven some of them to want to quit doing it. Mm-hmm. And the comments I've heard mainly have been that Blue Earth County works pretty well. In other words, Blue Earth County plays in the sandbox pretty well with most of the people they license, which is a home daycare based centers. But the larger ones, which are with the state, become more complex, or they have different people coming down on a regular basis that check these out. Maybe they've never hardly seen that center, then another one comes down the next time that hasn't seen that center, and the consistency is thrown off a little bit, and it really gets some of them disappointed. I know that it's a vulnerability issue we have to look at here too, thinking about the county attorney's office and just the vulnerability of children, making sure our centers are licensed appropriately. But I'd like to ask the county again, which I brought up to Bob once at a meeting, and maybe ask the board to consider, you know, what parameters can the board go with this? Are we allowed to even do the centers to provide the licensing, or to approach the state to see if they would let us, since we're way down here in southern Minnesota, and to license both our homes and the centers, so we have more consistency in licensing expectations. And I brought up at one meeting, remember that somebody got cited because they didn't have enough Play-Doh, and yet the state doesn't list the amount necessary, it just says adequate amount. Those are the kind of things that sometimes get people discouraged. They get cited, they've been working hard to keep their daycare going, and it really affects the morale sometimes. Then the other issue is the training. They might have to drive over to Marshall. I mean, they have to figure out how to get somebody to take their spot and drive 2 hours to a training session that's going to last 4 hours and drive. They wish there was more centralized or options for training locally, and to keep up with their training.
Or online.
Some of it is online.
You know, you would think training for this should be probably more online.
Yeah. I just know that there's a lot of issues that we don't have here that we haven't maybe heard. I know Bob's maybe heard some of those things, but I just thought we should know about them.
I hear those same frustrations out in the rural areas. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think the thing I've heard is the online training is hugely helpful on the training. So, you know, in my mind, maybe we look at enhancing that a little bit as a first step, and then look at other things that we can do. You know.
Somebody wrote to me once, and they said it was a weekend or a holiday or something, and they couldn't get into the training site. Mm-hmm. And that was the day they didn't have any kids.
Yeah.
So then they got to sit up until 1 or 2 in the morning doing the training on a weekday, just because the site had crashed or something with the state, or whatever company it is that's overseeing it. And so those are the kind of things that are frustrating for these daycare centers. And I've heard from several, mostly women, there's a few men, but mostly women, tell me that this is maybe their last year. So here we are trying to encourage people to start new centers, while other ones are going, if you can't deal with what's happening, we're just going to quit anyway, we're tired of it.
Well,
so,
and to your point, Mr. Chair, but a lot of that is, unfortunately, that's state-driven, state
mandate.
I know.
Mandates and all that. And so that's where the big problem is, and and you get into the rulemaking and all that. It's not glamorous, and legislators should spend more time there to rectify it.
To hear.
And prove, so we can have more people that want to go into daycare, encouragement. But yeah, I don't know, that Bob knows that stuff, how, it's hard to get, but that's where you need some of these changes, and then of course the legislature reacts to these things, the child endangerment and all this stuff, and what happens, so then the pendulum goes too far one way, and it's just kind of, and then they make all these rules that, because I know, people in daycare I know got out, it's to the point where they just watch TV. They can't hardly go outside. It's crazy.
Liability. Well, sometime maybe we'd have more discussion on it. Maybe
Good conversation.
That was good.
Was there any action here?
Yeah, we need to. Mr. Chairman, request approval of this loan program.
We got a first and a second. Just we got pretty deep into the weeds here, and
it's all right.
So all those in favor of this program, obviously we are, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
I like that. Obviously, we are part.
I know, sorry. Well, it sounded like everybody was for this.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 10 in your packet is a transportation fee proposed by the Veteran Service Officer for transportation to the VA clinic up in Minneapolis. We've been operating our transportation program in concert with Nicollet County, so we have a 5-day-a-week coverage between the two counties to get our veterans up to the clinic appointments that are needed. And so the VA, though, has actually changed the way they reimburse the veterans for transportation costs. And so we used to be able to receive some of those transportation dollars directly from the vets, but with the reimbursement going directly to the veterans now electronically, it was felt that we needed to bring forward this transportation fee proposal of $20 per ride. The veteran service officers in both counties are aware that some individuals may have some hardships, and they're certainly willing to work with those individuals to reduce the fee or eliminate it in those cases. But rather than rely kind of purely on donations based on the reimbursement that veterans get, wanted to move to this sort of flat fee environment. This was talked, as you recall, with the Nicollet County Board in our joint session a couple of weeks ago, and there seemed to be general agreement in the room that this was an appropriate direction to go so that we can keep that transportation program going. These funds will be used to replace vans that are utilized to provide that transportation service, and so it's important to keep that fund alive.
I'll move the transportation fee at $20 per ride.
All right, so Commissioner People has moved for this
second
new fee of $20 per ride, and
second.
Commissioner Stormberg seconded it. Any other comments or questions?
We went through it quite a bit, and of course our veteran service officer was here. And,
yeah, he did a good job.
Mike explained this to us before, so.
Yeah, February 6th board meeting, he was here.
Yeah.
It was not an action item, we just had a informational piece.
Yep.
Then later on that day, we met with Nicollet County, like Bob said, and they fleshed it out. Whoever represented, there were several commissioners from Nicollet County there, and the administrator, and fleshed it out.
Right. Our veteran service officer had intended to ask this board on the 6th to approve this fee, but when Nicollet County expressed some desire to talk about it jointly, we moved it to an informational item at that time, and seems like there's general support for the idea.
So it sounds good. Any other comments? It's nice that we can provide these services for our veterans.
Yep.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 11 is the audit engagement letter. It's a lengthy letter that we see each year basically just describing the role that the state auditors will play in terms of auditing our financial records, and as well as the role of management to provide the information to the auditors. And so we just need approval of the board to engage the Office of the State Auditors for our audit.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We've got a motion for approval from Commissioner Brunder and a second from Commissioner Purvis. Are there any questions or comments?
I think we've all been through this as chairs at one point or
Yeah.
the other, so I think we all understand it.
Yeah, they usually approach the chair. I haven't been approached yet by the auditor's office. Usually they call me or send me a note or something, but they did 4 years ago when I was chair, I know that. But
I imagine that's still coming.
maybe it's still
They'll
coming.
reach out to you.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Financial status.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 12 is the financial status report for January. It's the first month of our fiscal year, and so you'll see that our total revenues are at about 3.5 million against total expenditures of 6.8. Very typical for this time of year. You know, a lot of variability in terms of the arrival of revenue and expenses when you only have 1 month's worth of data to look at. So I don't intend to spend a lot of time on that, just because it's more a timing issue than anything at this point. At the bottom of the first page, you'll see the enterprise fund, the Ponderosa, where our revenues are at 161,000, our expenses at 144. And then the second page again gets into our cash balances, with our total county funds sitting at almost 106 million for those funds that we have control over. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know I moved through that pretty quickly today.
Well, like you said, it's the first month of the year, so I can't imagine we're going to see much movement. I mean, we got some bills that are due, but you know,
you really need to get through the first quarter to kind of even out some of those variability type items.
Yep. Otherwise, I'm sure it's similar to past years.
Looks
Okay.
good to me.
That's good.
No approval on that or any action, is there?
Nope.
Okay. And so then we've got anything else, Bob, as far as the
That's all we
administrative services?
have for you today, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. We got commissioners' reports on committees and involvements. And who would like to begin today?
I can certainly start if you'd like, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Brunder?
After our last board meeting, we went to the Nicollet County joint meeting that we had with several other commissioners and some staff. I thought we had a great discussion about all kinds of different things. Drew did a good job running the meeting and
thank you.
keeping us on task. But a lot of good discussion.
Yeah.
Then department head on Wednesday. Planning and zoning, unfortunately, we've already approved all the stuff, so that's the only problem with our having our reports behind
but still.
behind the planning and zoning meeting. Will be this will be the only issue. So because we haven't had a meeting since I met with them, so that's just one of those things we'll have to work through. South Central Workforce had our meeting there. Everything's going along really well. Mayors and clerks was already talked about a little bit. Pat did a great job talking about his county attorney's office and just some of the trends going on in Blue Earth County. And then the discussion about the child care loan. Region 9, I got invited to a Region 9 roundtable discussion on some of the issues just we have going on statewide, but I think I'll let Drew touch on it a little bit more. He's a lot more versed on it than I am, but I thought it was a great turnout.
It was really something.
I was thinking after we had that meeting, Pat would have been a place for Pat to be. You know, I wish he would have been there.
Yeah, I really do too. I think
he doesn't touch on a lot of that, but I just think
it would have been wonderful to have him there, actually.
So next time they do it, because they talk about doing it again quarterly, so we'll have to make sure we mention that. But I'll let you touch on that a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Then I had my MVAC Child Development meeting, which is a group of parents that just get together and talk about the policies that the program has through MVAC and just work through different things. And then I was up at MICA last Wednesday, getting geared up for the session. Everybody's ready to go, and we changed our meeting from 1:30 to 1, so we can get out of the cities by the time the traffic gets too thick. But the MICA team's ready to go for the lobbying. We've already set all of our policies in place, and they're ready to hit the road running. So that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Very good, very good. Somebody over here?
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Mr. Purvis or
Okay,
Mr. Purvis?
Kip talked about the joint meeting with Nicollet County and covered that quite well. On the 7th, we had the department heads meeting, not anything real important to present there. Of course, mayors and clerks on the 8th, and then on the 11th, while at the St. John's Lutheran Church Pancake Feed in Rapidan, I had an impromptu discussion about the forgivable loan program with the
very good.
potential daycare providers. So you never know. You never know when that's going to happen.
You don't know.
And then on the 16th, I had a meeting with the landowner discussing County Ditch 28 and a possible wetland restoration project that's going on out there, which Bowser is working on. So that's my report.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. People?
Sure. After the joint Nicollet meeting, yeah, I missed a couple of those other ones. Work related, I don't know, I couldn't make it. But I had the open house. I went to the CASA 14 at Public Works on that night. And then, then we had precinct caucuses in there. Then we had on the 13th, I did do the election canvass for that election along with the chair for the Southern District. I never the number. Then we had, yeah, I guess that really, yeah, that includes my report because it gets to the weekend, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stuenberg?
All right. Well, it starts with our board meeting last 2 weeks ago. I was not able to make the Nicollet County meeting as I had a Transportation Alliance meeting with Director Margaret Donahoe with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce President Doug Loon. Talked about Minnesota transportation issues and a possible constitutional amendment that may be coming up this year, and talk about the work together with the Chamber and the Transportation Alliance. Next day, February 7th, we had our department head meeting. That was talked about. On February 8th, I called in for a NACO Central Region call-in. I think, Drew, you were on that.
Yeah, yep.
We had a speaker that had issues concerning the large box stores and suing counties across the United States for a reduction in taxes. This is not a Blue Earth County issue. This is a United States issue. And there's different states that are taking action, like the state of Wisconsin is changing its state laws or have bills in reference to the dark store status issues that are coming up. And they also mentioned that County Government Month is in April.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's right.
I was had a week of vacation with my wife, and so I came back last Friday. So I don't have very long. But since I was asked this morning if I was going to continue and ask the citizens to approve of me being county commissioner for another year, I am going to run this year as county commissioner, so I'll make that formal.
Thank you.
Right here.
Yeah.
First time said. How's that?
Very good. Very good. Is that it then?
I'm done.
Well, that seems short, Vance. I don't know.
Well,
oh, you're on vacation.
You were on vacation for a week.
A week.
You could take more
Well, you deserve
A
that.
week in Mexico will do that to you.
You did deserve that too, I think, so. And here's my report then too. Again, it starts with our last board meeting on February 6th. Real quick, we had John, how do you say his name? He's with Kraus Anderson. Pristash. He's the manager overseeing, helping us with the government center. And of course, we approved a lot of bid awards there. We had the Microsoft contract renewal for about $522,000 over the next 3 years that we approved. And Kern Bridge, that alternative transportation grant. Looking at that to see if the state will give some money for the townships. And then, of course, our joint meeting you mentioned, everybody mentioned that was there, and that veterans fee. Thursday, the February 8th, the NACO Central Regional Call-In, and Commissioner Struenberg talked to that. The gentleman's name was Mark O'Connell, and he is the executive director for their state association, just like we would have here in Minnesota for AMC. And that dark store issue, I guess, I mean, that's going on everywhere, isn't it?
Everywhere.
Yeah, so, if anybody wants to talk further about that, though, I'm sure they can talk to Bob. Bob knows about it, too.
And Patrick knows
And Pat would know about it, for sure. They're just trying to get reduced taxes by using empty stores up the road or something and saying, well, that's all it's worth, when actually they're making millions and millions of dollars in retail sales, and so the building is actually worth more because of its usage. So they've been in courts over those issues, I know. February 8th also, I had quite a lengthy call-in with the Executive SHAC Committee, which is the State Community Health Services Advisory Committee, in preparation for our meeting, which will be this Friday, the 23rd, up in St. Paul. It's about a 5.5 hour meeting, because we have the exec meeting for 45 minutes or so.
Oh my.
Yeah, and then we have a 4.5 hour meeting with a half-hour break for lunch, and we eat right there. A lot of new things, though. We've got a new, Commissioner of Health for the Minnesota Department of Health. We've got Jan Malcolm, very respected, liked person, and she was the commissioner, I believe, maybe through one or two governors.
She do
Ventura, maybe?
Was it Ventura and Plenty, or just
Could
Ventura?
be. I'm not sure. I just know
yeah.
she was on the call and got to hear a little bit from her. And then this year, as you know, I'm the chair, so I help run the executive committee meetings, and I also run the large SHAC meeting, which represents all 87 counties and all of the 50-some community health boards throughout the state. So I get a little, just to be honest, I do get a little bit nervous and sometimes humbled, because it's so much stuff we have to cover. It's just trying to get some new ideas out there, and
going on.
What are we going to work on for the year, and some hot topics and work groups that we're going to put together. Hopefully I've been sending some of those reports to you too, so if you feel like reading them. And then on the 8th, we also had that mayors and clerks I just mentioned down at Maggie's in Mapleton, and that was a good meal down there. I think I forgot to put them on my approved list. The chair's list for places to eat, if we could add that on there maybe, if Amy, Jessica could get that to Amy.
Always had a good meal there.
Yeah, so typically we stay closer in during the winter and inclement weather, and then in the summer, spring, fall, we go out to the rural areas to eat for our little luncheon after our board meeting, so. I also wanted to mention thank you to Pat McDermott, our county attorney, who spoke at the mayors and clerks in Mapleton, and some of the work he's been doing and working with the school truancy program and getting that more developed. And what was the name of, what's the other project that's worth the youth?
Child Advocacy Center?
Child Advocacy Center that's being developed also. So I think that's good to hear about those things. February 9th, that special breakfast roundtable that we went to, Kip, the MSSA breakfast, and that's the Minnesota Social Services Association. So it's for quite a few people who are members. I don't know if Blue Earth County is even a member, to be honest with you. I don't think we are.
Not as an organization. Individuals, I think, do.
Okay.
Sign
Yeah,
up.
that are on there. Sibley County and Brown County, Nicollet County, I know they've got human services people on there, LeSueur County. The Leo Hoffman Center had representation, Welcome Manor, MSU, social work, MVAC was there, Director Minra, Linda from our area agency on aging down here. I think they have about 27 counties they represent. Sioux Trails Mental Health Center. I mean, there was quite a group of people. Then we had Nick Frentz, Jack Considine, Representative Considine, commissioners from Jack Kolars from Nicollet County. I don't know.
John from Nicollet County.
Oh yeah, another commissioner from Nicollet County. Quite a few people, and I'll tell you, it was more fruitful of a meeting. I hope somebody took some notes, because I wrote a few down. Really talked a lot about some of the needs and some of the practices that are going on regarding social services, mental health, public health in our region here. And so it's a 9-county area. So it gets confusing when we talk about Region 9, because sometimes we think it's the Regional Development Commission. But this is the MSSA, which is another association that people belong to that work on these best practices, and they advocate legislatively for things, for changes and healthy changes in our region. Tuesday the 13th, of course, with our canvassing board. We missed you. I know that you're off of that now, Vance, but
I couldn't make it.
I know.
I was someplace warm.
I know, you're on vacation. So we had Commissioner people there and several others. Michael Stahlberger helped us walk through that. And then on the 14th, that is the Day of Love. You know that?
That's your wedding anniversary too, isn't it?
You got it. So that's my wife and ours wedding anniversary date. It's funny, it's February 14th, and that's the 14th, that signifies 14 years of marriage together too. So.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a wonderful dinner together that night, and it was fun. Our NACO membership call-in meeting was also on that day, so I had to kind of squeeze that in. And some good things are being done with membership. We're adding more counties to NACO. I call into these meetings whenever they have them and listen and participate. I've made a commitment, I think it was in early fall, that I would visit several counties that aren't too far away. Wisconsin is only short out of, like, I'm going to say 60, I don't know what they have, 62 counties or something. Don't quote me on the number, but it's less than what we have number-wise. There are only 6 or maybe 7 counties that are not members of NACO. And so I made a commitment to go over to 2 counties that are very close to Minnesota and just see if I could share with them what it's been like being on NACO and what benefits we get from being a member. And so I will do that this year. I'll go see those 2 counties.
Good for you.
Possibly 2 in Iowa. We'll see. I'll have to clear it with Linda Langston. She's the down there. And then on the 15th, the RAC call in, of course. That was our Rural Action Caucus with NACO. And Arthur Scott is the staff on that. And they talked a lot. It was President's Day actually that day, wasn't it? No. Monday was President's Day. Yeah, that was okay. So this was Thursday the 15th. There's going to be some work done at the conference that we go to. They're going to have some gatherings, talk about some of the White House goals that they've identified, and so they can communicate these more clearly with counties. Talked a lot about transportation funding changes. I don't know if you've heard. In my mind, I just keep this in my mind, it used to be basically the grant dollars from the federal government was about 80%, local dollars was 20%. The new mix is going to be 20% from the federal government and 80% from local dollars. So I mean, it's going to be quite a change for us when we're going forward, if that's what it ends up being. Talked about the infrastructure package that also came forward from the current administration, which is pretty aggressive, but it's $200 billion over the next 10 years. So that's $20 billion, which still, is just barely touching what we need probably in this country. But $100 billion of it will be set aside for the governors to deal with within each state. And so they'll give final approval. They're going to have kind of authority over $100 billion and divvy it out across the United States for each governor, all conglomerately. $50 billion is going to be for rural infrastructure needs. So that's kind of good. We need to address some of these rural issues that are going on. And then 2 different types of grants, that rural performance one and one with rural infrastructure. So they've got things kind of flowing and going forward. I'm not sure where it's going to end up yet. The USDA though is going to get, it doesn't sound like a lot overall, but it's a lot of money. It's $850 million cut to the USDA. So there will be some services and people who are used to getting services through our USDA in our state that will feel the crunch, because some of those programs will end that are normally there if this is going to go forward. And then there's even the idea, there's a possibility that the President administration is knocking around having a 25-cent gas tax, which they have not.
25 cents a gallon.
A gallon, excuse me. You would know probably. And they haven't changed that in about 25 years. So I think it was 1993 the last time they added 18 cents or something like that. So now they're looking at the benefits of what they could get with that quarter, which would be like a penny a year, I suppose, since they last did it. It was a good long phone conversation, and I think that's pretty much my report, except for I've got something else aligned with what you've got to say there, Commissioner Struenberg. I've decided that this is our year, the two of us, we have to decide to run. Throughout the last months, talking with my wife and my family, I just decided I don't think I'm going to run again. So it'll be a good 9+ years by the end of this year, and I plan on my involvement staying very high throughout this year. Number one, I'm the chair of several committees and vice chair of some committees. Plus, I'm the chair of the county board, and so I think I have to respond to that and be as active as I can. But I plan on being very active throughout this year. But at the end of the year, then I won't be a commissioner anymore, and it's been interesting. I'll have more to say probably at the end of the year. But so I just wanted to let people know, and the board know officially, especially that I won't be running this year, and not sure about my new horizons, but it relates to family things, and you guys know my health sometimes hasn't been its best, and I just got a lot of loose ends in our family, and I want to be around for the grandkids, so that's part of it.
Well, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I really thank you for the time that you spent and your leadership and your knowledge. And we don't always agree with each other, but we always respect each other. And I really appreciate your time that you spent and your background. You come with a different idea that some of us may not have, and that's a great thing when you have a board.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. Is that because I'm an immigrant, or an immigrant's son? No, I'm teasing.
You will be missed.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
I want to congratulate you and tell you how exciting it is to look at a different chapter of your life too.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Yeah. It's going to be about. I think it's 9 years and 3 months. It'll be something like that. 9 years and 4 months. It was September of '09. So,
and of course, you got to make your last year the busiest, don't you?
Well, I know.
You're the chair of
Isn't
a
that
half
funny?
a dozen
It's commendable.
committees.
It's commendable here, actually. Not going out quietly. You're going. You're doing your whole bit.
Yeah, I want to enjoy the involvement, and believe it or not, too, it's kind of hard to make that decision, because I feel like now I've gained so much knowledge about things, and I'm on so many committees, and I know so many people. But I can't just look at that. I have to look at other pictures, my own personal life, my family, and all those kind of issues too. But if it was just to look at that, I'd go, no way, man, I'm going to do this. Because now I can really do something. That's kind of the way I feel, as far as in the role. And you guys have kind of, cut me loose, No.
We just give you we gave you a longer leash, wasn't it?
Yeah, a longer leash. That's probably it too. So thank you. And so now what we're going to do, I guess, is we're going to what do you call it? Recess. Yeah, we're going to recess and have a luncheon meeting at the Ummies Bar and Restaurant, downtown Mankato.
And that's the old. Well, we were there.
I don't know what it is. It's almost next door to Polly Eyes down there.
What was it called?
They had a couple different names down there. I don't know what it was.
I'll move to recess to Yummies for lunch.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to recess to Ummies and a second, so let's do that.